And tonight we start with breaking news. Russian troops on the move in Ukraine with blasts heard in multiple cities, including Kyiv. Less than 2 hours ago, President Vladimir Putin announcing a special military operation underway. And then just a short while ago, Ukraine's president declaring martial law, urging people not to panic.
Now, Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, is 9 hours ahead of us, so it is 7:26 a.m. there. And the lives of Ukrainians changed profoundly overnight. I want you to listen to these explosions heard from the capital at the moment Putin announced this operation.
Whoa.
And there have been more. Crews on the ground in Ukraine reporting it is Ukrainian military installations that are the targets. Now, just hours before all of this started, Ukraine's president denounced Russia's claims that Ukraine is a threat and emphasized that Ukraine doesn't want a war, and he called for peace.
Now, an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council was held tonight just after President Putin warned that any foreign attempt to interfere with this operation would, quote, lead to consequences they have never seen.
In the last hour, we spoke with a Denver woman who has family in Ukraine, and she says she's terrified and is working to get in touch with family and friends.
It's like something out of a horror movie. I mean, it's the worst nightmare scenario. They do have bomb shelters, and she said they're all packed and ready to go if and when they feel they need to. We asked them maybe they could travel to the west, maybe to safety, but I don't know. This is so dire. It's so gruesome. It's so scary.
And late tonight, the White House released a statement reading in part, "The prayers of the entire world are with the people of Ukraine tonight as they suffer an unprovoked and unjustified attack." And the president goes on to say President Putin has chosen a premeditated war that will bring catastrophic loss of life and human suffering. And President Biden is monitoring the situation and says he will address the American people tomorrow.
And while you sleep, Denver 7 will be monitoring this development. We'll update all night long on all of our digital platforms, and make sure to tune in to Denver 7 starting at 4:30 a.m. for the very latest on this unfolding situation in Ukraine.
And out of the other top story that we are following tonight, and we're talking about that Arctic cold front that has settled into Colorado. And light snow returned for a third night in a row, but yes, the end is near, folks.
All right, let's get to our chief meteorologist, Mike Nelson, with just when the warm-up returns. Mike?
Weekend is pretty much the short story on that. We'll stay cold again tomorrow and Friday, but there will be improvement gradually day to day. Right now it is 7 downtown in Denver, 6 in Greeley, 2 out at Akron. Throw in the wind, though, on the eastern plains. That's the big concern. 13 below wind chill at Greeley, 23 below currently at Sterling. There are wind chill advisories that remain in effect across all of eastern Colorado. In the mountains, we still have winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories for about another 3 to 6 inches of snow expected overnight tonight over the mountains, especially along and south of I-70. Now, there's a little band of snow that has developed right over the Denver area at the moment, and that is dropping about an inch of snow over the downtown. It's going to gradually decrease as it moves toward the north and east, but that's going to slick up the roads overnight with low temperatures right around 0 tomorrow morning. Expect the streets, the sidewalks, and some of the main roadways will be slick and a bit slow, but there's hope on the horizon. I do have 60s coming up in the 7-day forecast. I'll share that with you in about 15 minutes.
All right, thanks, Mike. We'll see you then. Today, Denver announced it will no longer require city employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Now, this applies to Denver teachers as well. Also, anyone who contracts with the city and workers in high-risk settings.
99% of Denver's workforce is now vaccinated. But before the city hit that number, many lost their jobs over the vaccine mandate after it was implemented last fall.
And tonight, the question, why reverse this mandate now? With that, here's Denver 7's CB Cotton.
For nearly 2 years, the city and county of Denver has worked to overcome the pandemic. On Wednesday, Denverites found out they're one step closer with the announcement that Denver would lift its vaccine requirement for city employees, contractors, and workers in high-risk settings. The requirement put in place last fall as COVID cases surged in the state.
We anticipated that we were in for a pretty rough winter
with this virus, and that certainly proved the case.
But the director of Denver's public health says now things have changed. The latest data showing the COVID positivity rate for the city has dropped below 5%.
And it's time to move to more of an endemic response to managing COVID-19.
Some have praised the city's public health response to the virus, and then there are some, like Jonathan Christian, who say they're left feeling confused. Christian, a former Denver police officer, was terminated back in November over his vaccination status after serving for 6 years.
I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I'm just kind of along for the ride at this point.
But he wants his job back. Over the fall, his attorney Randy Corcoran filed a lawsuit on behalf of him and 6 other officers against the city's health department and city leaders over the vaccine requirement. The case was later dismissed, but Corcoran says
the window is not closed for officers who want to perhaps try and sue to get their jobs back. There's other avenues.
Avenues that Christian says he's already working on.
I always imagined this to be a career. I imagined doing 25, 30 years, working my way up the chain.
That former officer, Jonathan Christian, is appealing his termination in early March. Then the city will have 2 weeks to respond. Today, the Denver Department of Public Health told me those who were fired would not be getting their jobs back, citing the city's career services rules. We've got a full statement on that over on our website, thedenverchannel.com. Back to you.
All right, CB, thank you. New tonight, Colorado State Patrol says the pandemic hasn't slowed the amount of narcotics entering our state. They say the war on drugs is extremely concerning as fentanyl pops up more and more in Colorado communities. State Patrol says they seized more narcotics in 2021 than any year since 2017, and fentanyl topped the list. State Patrol seized more than 150 pounds of fentanyl powder, and that's a more than 400% increase from just 2020. Seizures of meth also jumped nearly 300% from 2020, surpassing 1,400 pounds. And keep in mind, these are seizures just from Colorado State Patrol. Local law enforcement agencies are also seizing a large amount of narcotics as well.
Tonight, investigators are still working to figure out what caused an explosion at a townhome complex in Westminster this afternoon. 3 people were hurt, including a firefighter.
And this is the second explosion in 2 days in the city limits of Westminster. Denver 7's Sloan Dickey spoke with residents who recount the chaos.
Well, firefighters are wrapping up their battle with the flames here, but the investigation continues into what caused that explosion that destroyed several townhomes that you see behind me. Residents here say they heard a loud bang and then saw flames.
We came out to see what happened. Wow, that's crazy.
Residents of Stratus Townhomes in Westminster watching as their neighbors' homes burned to the ground.
It's very close, you know.
At 1:30 on Wednesday, neighbors here say they heard a loud boom.
I got really scared. It sounded like a gunshot kind of.
It scared the crap out of me. I was honestly scared for my life.
When they came outside,
the house was just blazing. It was on fire.
This is what they saw.
The rage that was in those flames was pretty intense, though. It looked like there had been some kind of accelerant because it went up, and it went up fast.
An explosion destroying 8 units and displacing residents. Westminster police say a contractor hired by the Stratus Townhomes was doing work on furnaces and hot water heaters, but it's still not clear what caused the explosion. 2 residents here are hurt but are okay. A firefighter was also injured and transported to the hospital with minor injuries. Fortunately, nobody was killed.
Because it's so cold out here, you know, people are running out without shoes, without jackets and tank tops, and one of the neighbors inside has an infant, you know. I couldn't let this baby just be outside.
The explosion here comes just a day after another explosion killed 1 person 2 miles away, also in Westminster.
Obviously, any home explosion is unusual. Yes, it's strange to have 2.
Police say the 2 are not connected, and they're now urging displaced residents to not turn off their utilities. Residents are just grateful all their neighbors are safe. And the Red Cross has been called in to assist the residents who have been displaced by this explosion. In Westminster, Sloan Dickey, Denver 7.
Boulder County announced today that they will also be removing the foundation of homes as part of their debris removal program. Debris removal is expected to start next week on March 1st. A Louisiana-based company was awarded the contract to help with the cleanup, and they say they believe they can get things cleaned up by July 1st if the weather cooperates. The fire, as you know, destroyed more than 1,000 homes, and city and county leaders have already requested reimbursement assistance through FEMA to cover the cost of debris removal. And they estimate the cost to be between $35 and $40 million. Now, foundation removal is not part of that request yet, but the county is hopeful that FEMA will agree to cover that cost as well.
Well, the Marshall Fire took such a toll on our community, including on the students of the Boulder Valley School District. About 800 students were displaced by the fire. And now the Colorado Department of Education is giving that district nearly $1 million to cover the cost of behavioral health counselors. Now, the money will cover the cost of 4 full-time school counselors to work in 8 schools for a year and a half. They'll work with students on mental health support and navigating this trauma.
A wild night at Moby ends with a court storming. We've got your highlights, plus hear from the star of the game coming up.
A tropical paradise in the middle of an Arctic cold snap.
At any given point, you may encounter 2,000 tropical butterflies.
Next on Denver 7, we take you to the Butterfly Pavilion to learn more about conservation efforts and the impact these insects are having on young Coloradans.
More warnings and advisories in effect for tonight, but coming up, I have 60s in the 70s.